Well, welcome to this live interview hosted by the J70 UK and Ireland class. And today we'll be talking with the reigning J70 Corinthian World Champions, Ian Wilson and Marshall King from Soak Racing. Ian, Marshall, welcome to the show.
Hey, Louis. Yeah, well, thank you for having us.
Hi, Louis. Great to be with you.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to get straight in here with what I'm calling Soak Racing Uncut. So this is a video that was taken dockside when you came in, and you'd only just found out that you'd won. It was that close. And this is totally uncut. This is the video team. Thank you, Sportography, for letting us play this. And I should explain, we didn't know either. So we had to divide and conquer, and it actually ended up with Ollie, the rib driver, interviewing you. So here it is, literally as it was when you found out you were world champions.
Thank you very much.
How does it feel?
Amazing. Absolutely amazing, yeah.
Well, we've been trying to do this for 6 years now.
It's been a while.
Yeah, since we started in La Rochelle.
So, yeah, it feels amazing.
Brilliant. Looking back after this week in Torbay, how have you found it?
Oh, hard.
Torbay's been great. It's been really difficult sailing, really shifty, really challenging, but great winds and great competition and really well organised. And we've had a great time. And it's great to come away with the win in the Corinthian.
What are the plans for this evening?
Get completely trolleyed, to be honest. Go large or go home. He's going home, by the way. We're going large.
Thank you very much.
Any particular bit of the race? When did you know that you were finally won?
Just when we got ashore.
Yeah, today's race was really exciting because we were 10 points behind DSP going into today. And then we had a really good first race and managed to sneak a fourth. And then it was a matter of staying close to DSP and trying to make sure there weren't too many breaks between us. And it all came down to the last 100 yards of the last run. And there were exactly 4 breaks between us, and that was just enough to give us the win. So it was very exciting right at the very end.
Yeah, we didn't quite think we'd done it coming in. We were kind of, at 1 point, just another point, we'd have been okay. And then when we saw the guys standing on the dock, it was like, oh, hello, we might have nicked this. And we did. Great stuff.
Have a great one.
Thank you very much. Right, look
Down, come for me. Big cheers.
Fantastic. Dockside there. And there is that picture that Sportography took. I'm just going to ask, first of all, I noticed in that interview, Marshall, you were 10 points behind going into that last day.
Yeah, the whole regatta, to be honest, was a series of roller coasters because we were competing for the Corinthian title mainly against DSP, which was helmed by our old rival Jeff Carveth and run by Doug Struth. And they had a great first day, and we had a sort of average first day, and it sort of went back and forth. And at one point after Wednesday, we thought we'd put them away with 30 points gap. And then we had terrible Thursday. And then Friday, we were sort of all square, and it was so exciting on the last day. And as you know, it came down to the wire. You can see there in the points, bang equal on points, and just we won on countback. So couldn't have been closer.
Yeah, Ian, what would you like to add to that?
Oh, nothing really. I think Marshall said it all. It was incredibly tight at the end. I think we'll talk about Thursday in a minute, but yeah, it was good. It was an epic event. The whole thing was just brilliant.
Yeah. Well, we don't normally start a show with you celebrating. We normally sort of run through the mill, but I just thought it was quite cool to make people remember how close that was. I mean, you tied on points after 14 races, and it was literally the last leg of the last race that you got those 4 places. So I just thought we'd remind everyone, but it doesn't start with the win. It starts a long time before that. And our next screen is young Adam Bruchette. I think he's the nipper on the boat, isn't he, guys?
Well, it's all relative. He's pushing 40 these days, but he still is the nipper on the boat, I have to admit. So
we'll play a little video, and then Ian, you can have a little chat about what this is what Adam said. We did a little pre-record with Adam.
We're quite lucky, really, because Ian's a real engineer at heart, so he loves to kind of make sure everything's running, correctly and smoothly on the boat, and he spends a lot of time off the water, as does Marshall, kind of getting the boat ready and prepped. But equally, when we arrive at an event, we all kind of naturally have our roles in terms of rigging it and things. I'll kind of always generally do the kite, so it's sort of my responsibility if it's upside down or anything like that. And we also have a kit list, a sort of checklist that we go through, before we hit the water every single day. And that's kind of checking over all kinds of things from certain fittings and stuff to even just making sure, things like fire extinguishers are on board, or some type of lotion, or you've got the right amount of water for the day, all that kind of stuff to make sure you're also well hydrated and got the right nutrition on board. So it's something we take quite seriously. We're very lucky, but although even at the Worlds, we did notice one of the kite sheets started to thread very thin. It was very close to snapping. And obviously changed that just before the last day. But it's even put in a lot of effort to make sure everything's running correctly and working, but you still got to check it and have your wits about it to make sure you're on top of stuff.
Yeah. Ian, you were mentioned very heavily there as, he then decided to add Marshall also does some boat prep, but boat prep very important, Ian, yeah?
Oh, absolutely. I always say perfect preparation. Whenever we get a new boat, I normally spend about 5 days solid on the boat, getting it ready, building the foundations to put the boat on. You just can't take anything to chance. Everything has to work 100%. 99% is not good enough, because you're putting yourself backwards. You're restricting yourself. So having the boat, having it identical all the time, so everything's repeatable, just takes all those little 1% and actually puts them in your favour and not against you. And so boat prep is everything. The sailing's the fun bit, but you have to put the hard hours in first to get your ride right.
Yeah, and I must say, I've noticed that the J70 regattas I've been to, I can never remember you having a major problem with gear, and so that sort of says it all for me. You very rarely bust anything, as far as I can make out, or you've kept it very quiet if you have.
No, that's absolutely right, Louis. We've never had a major gear failure. We got, as Adam mentioned there, we got very close in Tool Bay. One of the spinnaker sheets started to shred itself, which was a first, but no, nothing else has ever really failed.
I'm chuckling there, Louis, because there's a couple of stories here. First of all, Adam is sending a very coy message to us there, because there's a fire extinguisher story.
I hoped you weren't going to mention that.
We managed to go all the way to Monaco and went out for a regatta and actually did fantastically well. Stormed home the first day, well in the lead, only to find that the boat inspection found we didn't have our fire extinguisher on board. So we got penalised 5 points per race and ended up losing the regatta. But so that was the message Adam was referring to there. But in general, no, it's been great. Ian's fantastic on the boat prep. And for me, I think it's just about knowing everything's good and being mentally calm and knowing that nothing's going to break, and that just takes that whole worry away, and it's great to sail with a guy who also loves to bimble on boats and make stuff work and make stuff run smoothly. The story about the kite sheets, frayed kite sheets, is another good one, because we were going out to the start on that final day, and of course we're all a bit wound up, a couple of points between us and Jeff, and I looked down at the kite sheet and I saw it starting to fray a bit, and I was thinking, that looks a bit dodgy, and I said to Ian, do you think that'll last? And Ian, without a flicker, said, Marshall, that'll be fine for a year yet. Don't worry at all. And that just illustrates how Ian tries to make me confident, put me at rest. Okay. And I think we threw those sheets away at the end of that particular day. So
Yeah, we actually swapped halfway through the race, so we'd got spare sheets on board, and after the first race, we had to spin the sheets out, didn't we?
Okay.
And I had a big piece of humble pie to eat later.
Okay, nice one, Adam. Nice cryptic fire extinguisher. I like that. He didn't tell me that, by the way. Okay, straight up. Winter training, and I think this goes for this is obviously with a World Championship J70 team, but it goes for any team. It doesn't matter. Getting out in those winter months, it's important, isn't it, guys?
Yeah, so I think that doing training, even at the expense of racing, because we're all time pressured, is really worthwhile. It enables you to just go through things slowly, think about what you're doing, get your tacks sorted, get your jibes sorted, work out the movements. So we did a fair bit of that, and we figured out how to do rail-to-rail tacking, how to jibe consistently in all conditions, how to avoid Ian kicking Andy in the ribs every time we tacked, and so forth. And when you just go out racing and don't train at all, you tend to just miss those little bits, and that's, again, giving you confidence. And it's fun. And so we did some training with the academy boys from the Southern in the winter, and no prizes for sartorial elegance on the hats in that particular shot.
Ian, I didn't choose this picture. I didn't choose this picture, Ian. I just want to say that before you say anything, all right?
Louis, what are you referring to?
Well, there's all big cheesy grins all round. There's Ben Saxton, looking glamorous, looking like he's going to go for the next Bond role. There's Adam looking super cool, like he's off to, Mirabelle. There's Marshall looking dynamite. He's looking like a superhero. And Ian looks like he's just been licking the mustard off a knuckle.
Possibly, yeah. Thanks, Louis.
I didn't choose the picture, Ian. I didn't choose it. That was placed,
What on earth I've got on my head? I think it's actually a buff around my neck, and I think I've lost my hat at that point.
Okay. but it is. It is important. It is important to get out there on the water and
it's important. You can have great fun with it as well. So I think getting 2 or 3 boats out, short courses, exercises, particularly the winter when it's cold. No breaks and straight in again, and that can be a great day.
And you've got to keep sailing during the winter, because at our age we forget everything otherwise. So we'd forget how to tack the boat if we didn't sail every month.
Very good, very good. I've been really cruel to Ian there, so I'm going to be really nice to him. Monaco, Ian.
Yes, absolutely.
You're a big fan, aren't you?
I am. It's the only place you can go and learn how to start in a big fleet on a week-by-week basis. So, it's... I'm a great fan of the venue. I'm in the Yacht Club de Monaco. They put on a fantastic event. But you can't really sail in the UK and get any worthwhile hours in on the water in January and February. It's just too cold. Your brain goes numb. But as you can see down there, this is February. Nobody's got any oilskins on. We're just out sailing in t-shirts, and so your training becomes a lot more worthwhile because you can spend hours on the water as opposed to minutes.
Yeah.
And it also looks good on your CV when anybody gets back to work on a Monday and they say, "Where have you been?" "Oh, I was in Monaco for the weekend."
Yeah.
How can that go wrong?
But having said that, it's a cheap flight to Nice, isn't it? And you can stay in Nice. You stay in Monaco. It costs you a mortgage, but it isn't that expensive to go down to Monaco. And as you say, it's an amazing place to go sailing in the winter, isn't it?
It is, and the trick is to stay just up the hill in Beau Soleil, so you're not paying Monaco rates, but you're right there. You can, just above the casino square. I mean, it's just a fantastic place to go and hang out in the winter.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It sounds expensive, but actually you can do it pretty economically, and it's not really any more than going to anywhere in France for a weekend. So
yeah, and how did you get the boat there? How long did it take?
Day and a half. I normally tow it down behind the camper, so I don't have to worry about hotels, and you just drive as long as you want to. So yeah, day and a quarter, day and a half from from Hamble to Monaco.
Yeah, so easy in a weekend. You can do that.
Yeah, and the guys down there, they look after your motorhome or your car, whatever. You don't have to bring it back, so you can leave it down there for a couple of months, and they'll just look after it at the yacht club. I mean, they're just so welcoming to everybody. Doesn't matter who you are, they'll say hello.
Okay. Well, I think I've got back over the comments about your hat, and Ian, but now this is Andy Shorrock talking, not me. So we asked Andy Shorrock, your main sheet trimmer on Soap Racing, Ian Wilson, in one word. Let's see what Andy had to say.
Oh, there's many words that can describe Ian. Probably competitive, I would say.
Why competitive?
I hate losing.
He hates being beaten, and he loves winning, and so he's driven to be competitive in everything he does. I think that's whether it's his business and boat racing.
Okay.
He often he'll leave hardly any stone unturned, if that's the expression, to be as competitive as he can.
Well, you heard it there. Competitive, Ian. He says you're competitive. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Anybody that knows me would say that's the same thing. I hate losing. I hate coming second. I hate anybody, just to have gone home thinking that I haven't given it 110. That would kill me. So no, he's absolutely right there.
And I remember you telling me at that World Championship, you love taking it on with the pro teams, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. Professionalism isn't about whether you get paid or not. It's your attitude to the sport. And so the fact that we can get up there and mix it up with those guys and give them a really hard time, I just love that. And we're doing it on a shoestring.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go on. Now, Ben Saxton, I know, was racing with Soap Racing in the past, but he's still been part of your team. He's been coming in, and I think I'm going to ask Ian this. What's the benefit of having a world-class sailor like Ben Saxton come out and sail with you guys?
The depth of knowledge that he can bring from the performance sailing program that he's on is phenomenal. Just that teaches you to look in different places for performance gains that you wouldn't normally think of. We had probably a little bit of an old-fashioned attitude to working our boat up the course, but Ben was always go where the breeze is, go where the breeze is. Doesn't matter if you have to take a hit, just get where the breeze is, go fast, go everywhere as fast as you can. He's and just brought an extra, helped us think about our whole program in a more professional way than we were already trying to be. So it was really important to get a good coach every now and then.
Okay. Thank you, Ian. Then we've got a little series of slides here which demonstrates how to plan a season. And here's your calendar. Yeah, Marshall.
I can talk a bit about this. So we tried hard to be organised. All of us, working full time, limited time. We just had to make sure that we weren't wasting time on phoning each other and trying to organise things. So we put a Google sheet together, and it captured our calendar, as you see here. So what events we're going to do, who was available, who wasn't available. And like any team, sometimes not everyone can make every event, so you have to have a stand-in. And then on the next sheet, I think you'll see we kept a list of our performance notes. So what we would do after every regatta is we'd make a few notes, just the key things that we'd learned or thought about or discussed after the day's racing, and we just jot them down so that when we came back 3 weeks later, we could remember what we learned. Actually, Andy was great at focus on that and helping us do it. And then the other thing we did is we just kept track of all our expenses. So Ian and I sort of divvied up the costs, and we just made it so that when we spent something, we jotted it down on this sheet and totted it up. And you can see here actually that over the 2 years campaign for the Torbay Worlds, our outlay there was about 22,000 or about 11,000 each. So over 2 years, what's that, 5.5K each? That's, it's not nothing, but it's not out of reach of many people. So, this isn't necessarily only for really wealthy people. Like teams can come together and all chip in and put a decent campaign together. And actually, Ian, you cheapskate, I see you owe me 550 quid.
Oh, clearly I do. I'm just saying.
You do. Look at that.
I hope my missus isn't watching this, because I told her it costs us about $2,500 each a year. Holy schmoly. Get the numbers off the screen quick. I'm done.
All right, next.
But seriously, guys, there you go. I'll put it to that one. Seriously, guys, I think anybody watching this, if anybody says to them, their mate said to them, "Well, sailing, that's not too expensive," and everything else. How much is a season ticket to go and watch Chelsea? And at the end of that, you get an empty book. You get an empty book with no tickets left in it. You haven't got a boat that you can sell or that you can race again next year. So, I think it's important that you guys wanted to emphasise that it doesn't have to cost a fortune. And when you're splitting it between 2 of you or 3 of you or 4 of you, it becomes even more affordable, doesn't it?
Yeah. Although let's be clear, that was the running cost. It wasn't. It was including transport, travel, entry fees, all that stuff. It didn't include the capital cost of the boat.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you still got that boat at the end of your.
But we still got the
boat. World's campaign. Yeah. J70 UK Grand Slam Series. Now this was brought in. When was the first one, guys? Was it 2018 or did they do one 2017? I can't remember. I think it was
17 was the first one.
It's a recent idea. Can you just explain to people that don't know what the UK Grand Slam Series? What was it all about? Ian.
Oh, okay. I think probably Marshall's got a better steer on this one.
Okay. Yeah.
Well. It's a series that's used to decide the ranking really at the end of the year, and you have to count a number of regattas across the whole season. I think it's 5 of 80, and is that right? Something like that. But the point is, it gets boats out, it gets boats keen and racing for a ranking, and gives the UK sailors good opportunity to get trained up and going early in the season. So we used it last year after coming back from Monaco as the sort of main way of getting in shape leading up to the Worlds. And I think we had maybe two firsts and 2 seconds out of the 5 regattas in the lead up to the Worlds, and that gave us a lot of confidence going into that event, and allowed us to, get our sails right and make all the selections we needed and try and peak in Torbay.
Mm-hmm. It also helps from the class point of view. Obviously, there's lots of racing going on every weekend. So if you're not careful, the class can be diluted over many events. So by putting the Grand Slam in place, it actually gives the teams a cue as to which events it would be good to turn out, where you're going to get the best competition. Otherwise, you'll end up with half a dozen boats down in Cowes, half a dozen in Hamble, and some more all over the place. So it just helps to consolidate the fleet and keep the quality of racing high.
Yeah, and the top 10 Corinthian in this case, and the top 10 professional, they got seats for the Worlds, didn't they? So there's effectively 20 boats that have got something to win for the Grand Slam Series. It's not just the top boats; it's the top tier, the top 10 and top 10.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, if you don't turn up in the and do the Grand Slam Series, you can't go to the Worlds. It's quite simple.
Yeah, no, it's a great way of doing it. Well, we're gonna move the show now into some tips and tricks, which I'm always really interested in. And the first thing we're going to talk about is communication, and we're going to set you off with an interview from Adam. A few comments from Adam Bruchette, your bowman, on communication, just to whet your appetite, guys.
Yeah, communication's key, really. Obviously, we like to kind of keep a dialogue going all the time in the boat. And at the start of the season, we kind of made the decision as well that we'd kind of share tactics throughout the boat. So yeah, we try and all sort of contribute continually. We like to kind of hear, continuous dialogue going, so that we know there's kind of people that are contributing and kind of having their input into what's going on. So yeah, I'm kind of continually talking through numbers, looking at the compass. Trying to feed information back to the back of the boat as to whether on a lift or a header. Yeah, we're all kind of chucking in ideas, really. So, we'd all kind of contribute to what we think is the best way to get the beat and kind of have a kind of open conversation about it. Obviously, Marshall being on the stick has the ultimate say, but generally we're kind of talking about everything, and kind of everything's a kind of team decision.
Team decision. Who wants to lead off on this one? I'm going to go Marshall.
Yeah. So this is worth a moment of talking about, because as we talked about before, we sailed with Ben Saxton for a year or so leading up to the Worlds in Sardinia, and learned a lot from him, and that was brilliant. But Ben is just an extraordinary sailor, and was capable of trimming and doing tactics from the position ahead of the helmsman in the boat. And going into our own Corinthian campaign, we tried initially to replicate that setup, but we just couldn't really find anyone who could fill those shoes. So I thought, well, why don't we just do it a different way? Why don't we try and use everyone on the boat fully engaged, brain and brawn, so to speak, and divide up all the thinking roles as well as all the doing roles. And I was really aware that I had to focus on helming. I mean, a J70 needs a lot of helming focus. I knew Ian, was frequently not asked about his opinion about the big picture strategy stuff, but more often than not, at the end of the race, what he said was actually right. And Andy, we moved from the bow into a trimming role, and he really got stuck into that and figuring out all the minutiae to make the boat go fast. So basically, we had me steering, Andy making the boat go fast, Ian figuring out where we go on the course, and then Adam doing boat-to-boat tactics and compass on the front. And it worked really well, and we all enjoyed it, and I think we performed better as a team than any of us would have done as individuals.
Okay. Definitely.
Anything to add, Ian?
No, it was quite everybody that knows me knows I've always got an opinion, but I would never actually put myself down as a tactician beforehand. But then when Marshall said, "Look, can you just do big picture stuff?" Because I very kindly said, whenever you're on the boat, we seem to do better than when you're off. So that was quite a shock. We took a couple of races to figure out just what level of input Marshall wanted. But then after that, it was great fun to actually, as anybody knows, if you've been on the front of a big boat, the bowman's always got an opinion and wonders, because you can see so much more from up there, why on earth the helmsman has decided to go in this direction, and aren't the Afghard a bunch of muppets? And so we actually got our dream come true. Adam and I are talking about how we get the boat to the top mark, which side the shifts we want to be, what the other boats are doing, and so to be actually given that chance was awesome. So thanks, Marshall, for that. Really enjoyed that input.
I wish I could say I always took your input, and in fact, on terrible Thursday of the Worlds, I wish I had taken your input more, but
no comment. No comment.
Can I ask? Do you think that style of communication suits a mature crew? Because you sometimes, and I'm probably going to get slaughtered for saying this, sometimes you see with perhaps a younger crew, the turkey shoot at the top mark, blah, 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 all the shouting going on and all the rest of it. if you've divvied up people, if you can say anybody on board can talk, you need a maturity, don't you, to make sure that works.
Yeah, and that meant. Sorry, go on, Marshall.
I was just going to say my answer to that would be that you have to think ahead more, because if you're talking at the top mark, it's too late. You've got to be talking before you get there, so that you know what you're doing and where you're trying to be, and whether you need to jibe after the set or not. So it's about what I try and do on the boat is just ask questions to make sure everyone's thinking about the right things, or at least about something.
Okay.
Other than what pub we're going to in the evening.
And when you're as old as we are, and you've done 10, 20,000 windward mark roundings, you know which is going to work and when you're not. So to actually remind Marshall that we don't really want to be coming in on the starboard ley line on the first windward leg, and he generally takes that on board, and we get top left pocket very quickly.
Okay. Right, so switching up a bit, this is a completely different area, race management, and chosen a picture here of the principal race officer Stuart Childley and the director for the Worlds at the Royal Torbay Yacht Club, Bob Penfold, former commodore of the club as well, and it is so important to have good race management, isn't it, Ian Wilson?
Absolutely. Right, well, I'm going to take you back sort of 6 years now to Paul Hayes and I, God rest his soul. We're sitting in the White Hart in Hamble, wondering when it was our turn to host the Worlds, where we were going to go, and we looked at all the usual venues, and we settled on Torbay for two reasons. One, because it's the most frustrating place to go and sail, and we use the analogy, you don't play the Open on a municipal golf course. You find the hardest golf course you can, and so Torbay fitted that bill. And secondly, is the man on the right there, Bob Penfold. We knew that he would leave no stone unturned to deliver, to give us a regatta worthy of a World Championships. And once you've got those two things in place, then all you need is a first-class international race officer, and obviously Stuart fits that bill. So it was a dream team.
Mm. But it is so important when you're putting time, money, and effort that the regatta is presented to you in that way. It's a bit like going to a restaurant or a wedding or whatever it is. You appreciate when people actually run it properly, and it's so important. Particularly when people come a long way. Imagine you came from Brazil and it was a complete chimpanzee's tea party. You wouldn't be too happy, would you? So
no, I think one of the things the J70 class tries really hard to do, something I've observed at committee level and just talking to the people that run the classes, is race management is probably the most important thing, because if people come to an event and have great racing, they'll forgive a lot of other stuff, but they won't forgive poor race management. And Stuart, although he looks a bit concerned in that photo, he ran a fantastic event, I thought, there in very, very challenging wind conditions. And the thing he does really well is he communicates with the sailors and uses the radio very effectively. So you always know what's happening. You always know what he's thinking. You're not caught unawares halfway up the course with the race about to kick off. So that's one of the best things I think that he brings to his race management.
Yeah, very important. The Worlds at Torbay, we had over 20 different nations competing there. The variety of competition, that's something that, it's almost unique, isn't it?
Well, I think any World Championship in a big class is just a great occasion, because first of all, pretty much every boat there, and in the J70s, every boat is qualified. So there are no muppets in the fleet at all. So you can quite easily find yourself, in the 60s, 70s, in an 80-boat fleet if you're not careful. And then the other thing that's great is to look around on the start line and up and down the course and see the sailors that you're sailing against, people you've read about, people occasionally you might have met over the years, but great sailors, and that's part of the enjoyment of a World Championship. And yeah, 20 nations I think is a great haul, and is testament to the fact that this little boat J70 is really caught the imagination, and is probably the leading competitive keelboat, I would imagine, in yacht racing today.
Yeah. And next slide, to Ian Wilson. Great variety of sailors. You know, here's a picture of Saskia Clark, Olympic gold medalist, and Charlie Thompson, the oldest bowman in the world, sharing a moment at the World Championship. You do get that fantastic variety in the J70 fleet, don't you, Ian?
Oh, absolutely, and that's why I love it particularly. We've got we're in the Corinthian class. We've managed to qualify for the Worlds. Yet we're able to go out there, and you're on the start line, and as Marshall says, you look down the line and you go, oh, holy Moses, look, you know, there's Saskia. And there are just legends up and down the line, every which way you look, and you've earned the right to be out there with these guys. And it is fantastic. And it's a great leveler, because I saw some amazing sailors making some absolute howling mistakes during that regatta. And not that we didn't, but, you know, just proves that we're all equal. We're all humans at the end of the day. Yeah. And you can do that in a J70. It's not an elite racing class. It is just a solid quality racing class.
Yeah, yeah. And two couple of real characters there. I'm a big fan of Saskia and what she's done. And Charlie, he absolutely loves it, doesn't he? He's beaming like a Cheshire cat anytime he gets near a J70, as far as I can see.
Yeah, I'm going to take his crown off him. I'm planning to move to the bow next year, so I think hopefully that will make me the oldest bowman in the fleet. Charlie,
watch out! Wilson's heading to the front of the boat. Back to tips and tricks. Top mark, big fleet. I'm not sure if I go to Ian or to Marshall on this. What's your overall strategy, if you have one, in a big fleet like that? This is 78. J70s at the World Championship.
Well, if Marshall wants me to ever talk to him again, don't come in on the starboard ley line.
Okay. Well, actually, this is a great shot, because you can see that starboard tack parade and how much overstanding is going on there. So we would generally try and, as I put it, cut the corner, which really means making sure you don't get stuck out on that right hand side too early. And very often you can find a nice lane in a big fleet, sort of 15, 20 boat lengths down from that starboard tack parade, where the wind hops over the fleet and drops back down and is reasonable for an approach. So there's many a time when you can get back quite a lot of distance you might have lost earlier on in the beat, when lots of the boats give it away at the top mark. But equally, coming in on port is not to be recommended either, unless you've got a big repair bill expense budget.
Yeah, I think yeah. Sorry, Ian, go ahead.
Yeah, there's always a hole opens up somewhere. You may have to sail away from the mark of 2 or 3 boats, but there's normally a hole there somewhere. But if you come in on the starboard ley line and you're at the back of the parade, by the time you get to the windward mark, there's probably 6, 7, 8 boats inside you. And you've lost your tactical option downwind. You're going to have to go with a straight set. Where if you come in last minute on the port line, you can get into the middle or even on the inside lane, which is painful going round the mark. But you've got the option of an early bailout if you think the breeze is going to swing and you want to go left hand side of the track or keep that option open. Then it's there. But if you've come in from a long way out, you won't have that option of an early jibe.
Okay.
So one of the things there we'll try to always do 10 or 15 lengths away from the mark is figure out what shift we're on, so that we know are we on for an early jibe or a straight set, and that whole, in a big fleet, getting that positioning right, sort of even before the mark, as Ian's just pointed out, determines how you exit the whole windward mark area, and can be influential right halfway down the run even. So.
Good, very good point, guys. Very good points, I should say. Well, we got round the top mark. We're now downwind in our big fleet, and what's the overall goal? As you said, you've been talking about whether you're going to be an early jiber or whether you're going to continue on. So I guess you've committed at the beginning. After that, when you round that spread out, what's the most important thing?
Getting the boat on the plane as fast as possible. Particularly if it's a breezy day, that transition out of upwind mode and into downwind mode. I can't stress how important it is to get the boat moving. It doesn't matter if there's a sheet over the side or your cap's gone a wobble. Just get the boat going as fast as possible. I think Marshall will agree, because otherwise, if one of us is in the bottom of the boat picking a rope up and he can't get the boat going, we all know about it.
Right.
We actually spotted that. I don't know, so at some stage during the campaign that we were generally losing a couple of boat lengths at the set, and so we worked really hard on figuring out how to just get away from that place as fast as we could, and made some quite good progress. And I think it turned out to be a strength when it came to Torbay.
Definitely.
Well, I'm going to move on to three little words there. The big picture, Torbay. You know, it's. I spoke to a couple of one Russian crew, one American, and he said it's like lake sailing here. It's just surrounded by land, and the big picture in somewhere like Torbay, that's really difficult. What indicators do you use about changes in conditions? You know, were there some in Torbay, you can probably give it away now, that you were looking for?
Yeah, okay. I managed to find, I don't mind sharing it now, there was a Coast Guard station up on Daddy Hole Plain that had a free to internet weather station up there. And you could watch the shifts coming and going. And so we were able to, before the race started, actually get a really good idea of whether the next half an hour is going to be in a left-hand or a right-hand phase. And so, yeah, doing your research beforehand, getting all your local information together, that really helps with your big picture.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think then the other thing that we would try and do pre-start is just sail a little bit up above the line, stand up in the boat, have a good look upwind, try and figure out which side the pressure looked like it was coming down. And I would say in Torbay, we learned not to be afraid of changing our mind quite late on. Even if we were setting up for a port end of the line, and then we saw something dark on the right, we would double back and try and scramble to the right as fast as possible. And a couple of times that really saved our bacon, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. On a line that length, if you're at the wrong end, it is toast. You've just made the rest of your day really hard to come back. So it would be worth a slightly harder start in the second row on the right end than be at the front on the wrong end.
And tell me, as the regatta goes on, a picture starts to form of their competition. Do you change your strategy during the Worlds?
Yeah, obviously. Sailing's an ever-evolving sport. It's an ever-evolving day. The breeze, the water's never the same. So you have to be prepared to throw your playbook out the window when it becomes blatantly obvious that there's a new game on, and or as Thursday taught us, actually go back to the playbook when nothing's working.
Okay. Well, we've been talking about some technical stuff. We're going to have a slight little pause from these fantastic tricks and trips. Marshall King in one word. This is Adam Bruchette at the front of the boat, the nipper. I'll just make sure I get the right video up. Let's see what Adam Bruchette had to say about Marshall.
Well, Marshall's the king of being cool, I'd say. He's chilled is probably the word for him. I know we've used those words a few times because we're all similar characters, hence the reason we sail so well together. But Marshall is he's so relaxed on the boat. He's a great person to sort of sail with. I kind of love his attitude. You know, he's been there. He's won many championships and events in the past. But when you're in a difficult situation, he's so relaxed on the stick. You know, he never kind of gets aggressive or gets kind of excited in the situation, which I think is important. Because, you know, especially when you're sailing in big fleets like the J70, there's lots going on around you. Going into a leeward mark with the kite up, can't get it down. He's super relaxed. He kind of takes everything in his stride. So, yeah, I think chill.
The king of being cool. How many pints does he owe you, Martin?
Quite a few, but I'll tell you something that helps you be relaxed, and that's having a great crew in front of you and having done the work, so that you know as a helmsman you can change your mind on a windy drop, go to the other mark in 2 seconds, not even tell them, throw in a last minute jibe, and somehow it'll all work. So that does tend to help. And Adam was a star in that regard. He just made it happen somehow or other. He was also very relaxed.
Okay, wonderful. Well, we're going to get back to some tips and tricks, and the next, I was really fascinated by this from Andy Shorrock, and we'll play a little video from that. And we all know starts are really important, but Andy gives some really good info about setting up the trim before the start, and he's given a little bit away here, I've got to say. So let's see what Andy Shorrock had to say about setting up the trim before the start, and maybe then Ian and Marshall can make some comments. Here's Andy Shorrock.
Well, obviously we've done quite a bit of sailing before the start, so we'll know whether the wind's up, down, coming into sort of a minute to go. So within that last minute, I'll do the final adjustments to make sure we are, you know, broadly set in the right place for the vang and any Cunningham we need and the backstay. So that's all ready. So we're ready to go on that. We've been better and learned through the year about how we set the jib. So that's been it always seems to be a constant learning process. And we move the fair leads or the jib cars hardly at all now, and just use the halyard much more. So we adjust the halyard a little bit. So we're set on that, and that should be the right setting as we come out the start. Marshall will play the main before the start, and it'll lead into the chat on process that there are times when the helm will just need to put the boat into a hole and react very quickly. And what we've all said is, because we've done quite a bit of sailing together, is the team will catch up with him in terms of our processes and what we do.
Some really interesting points there, and the setup before the start there on the trim. I think I'll go to Ian first or Marshall first. I don't know who.
It's the same as the exit from the top mark strategy. You don't want to be setting your boat up after you've gone round the corner. You need to know that you're as you come off the line there, it's hard enough to hold the lane as it is. You don't need anybody in the bottom of the boat picking up and just tweaking the vang on a bit. You can do all of that beforehand. So literally, as the gun goes, you've sheeted on, you've hit the line at full speed, and we've got all the weight where it should be to give Marshall every opportunity to hold his lane, to get himself to where he wants to be. So, as you come off the line, you're fully powered up and you sent it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's something else we've figured out in the sort of lead up, that too often we were coming off the line and adjustments weren't right. So we just built it into our pre-start process to go upwind in sometime in the last 4 minutes and just get all the settings right and then leave them like that. So the last bit of approach, we just knew everything was right, and that those first 50 yards are the most critical of the race. And as Ian says, you got to be right on it to give yourself the best chance.
Mm.
And it's the same at the end of the downwind leg as well. It's not just put the kite in the bag and then we'll go upwind. We've actually thought about going upwind before we're probably 10 boat lengths out. So all the major controls are already preset, probably before we even get 5 boat lengths outside the circle. So all we've got to do is unfurl the jib and go.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we've been running for an hour, guys, so I'm just going to skip one, which is the big starts, because we were going to talk about how you practice this, but Ian's covered it already. Go to Monaco, basically, Ian, isn't that right?
Yeah, go to Monaco. There's 75 boats on the start line. You can't get it wrong, and the beer's amazing.
Okay, next. Right. So,
oh, and the girls are hotter too, but I didn't say that.
Holding a lane. Speed is king in holding a lane off that start line, and we talked about that getting the trim sorted out beforehand. But holding a lane in that fleet, it's very difficult. Some tips. I think I'm going to ask the helmsman here, Marshall.
Well, so I think everyone who started in big fleets knows that the crucial bit is the last 20 seconds before the gun, where you've got to carve yourself a bit of room to leeward, so you're not slammed against the boat to leeward. If you can pick someone who's not a rocket ship on either side of you, that's also helpful. Just get in gear quickly, and I think the helmsman has to be focused on steering, like really 100%. So that means the input needs to come audibly. So there's a lot of chat. There's a lot of talk about, I'm looking for information whether I'm sailing fat or high, and what our speed is like, whether we need to make any small adjustments. If we start losing the lane, is there an escape route, and when's the best moment to grab it? So those are the sorts of things we're talking about. And then hopefully Ian's also still thinking about the big picture and making sure we don't get locked into the boat-to-boat stuff, right the way out the side of the course and miss the whole story of the big picture. So those are the types of things we like to communicate about.
Absolutely. You've got to keep your helmsman confident. So I'm not saying I tell him porkies every now and then, but just keeping his confidence up. Marshall, you're high. Marshall, you're high and fast. Marshall, you're the fastest guy on the fleet right now. Just hold your lane. Because otherwise, if he bails out too soon, again, we've lost the opportunity. If we do want to go left, is to actually hang in there for a little bit longer and not give your options away too soon. And the guy to windward of you may have just had a little bit of a wave underneath him, just pushed him forward a bit. Doesn't mean to say he's faster. Just means he's just he, for a moment, and actually just keeping Marshall in the groove and just feeling good is key.
It's an important point, that actually, because mental resilience and strength to just keep fighting for that lane is really important. And surprisingly, with these J70s, you can lose a little bit and then you make a little tweak or a little adjustment and suddenly you're gaining a bit again. And so that's the part of the fun is it's a very, it's an easy boat to sail, but it's a tweaky boat to get that last couple of % out of. And that's where the good guys really show their skills.
Okay. Great tips there. Great tips. Which way? Well, we sort of covered this, but we haven't. Tor Bay was a particularly difficult venue, but I think Adam said in that video earlier on that you had the final say on the helm. What do you use most to decide? When literally you do not know which way to go. How do you make a decision? What do you? Because you've got to go one way or the other. So if you don't know, what do you do?
Well, you take the input of the team, and you also look where the top boats are lining up, both pre-start and in the early part of the beat. Generally, I like to stick with the top money. On the averages, that tends to work better. Mm-hmm. Although there were one or two occasions, and one particular race I remember where we made a late decision to start hard right, and it worked out beautifully. So, you got to be prepared to back yourself from time to time as well. But everyone in Tor Bay, everyone in that regatta got many beats wrong. The people who won were the ones who could dig themselves out of the wrong moves, and that was part of the fun. You just had to be relaxed about getting it wrong, and then just try and move forward from wherever you were. And that's part of the game.
Yeah. I'm gonna switch on to this one, and this is a cracking picture. Again, big up to Sportography, who did an amazing job at the regatta. What a picture, and I've put the word fulfilling on that, and you've all got proper jobs outside of sailing. And I remember asking Adam, I know he's got a teenage daughter, and I asked Adam, what it meant, and he said when he went home and his teenage daughter was just full of pride for what he'd done and made her want to go out and go sailing, that made it all worthwhile for Adam. I'm going to ask Ian Wilson first. What did it mean to you to win that World Championship, Ian?
I still can't put it into words. I still can't believe we actually did it. But when did I first bought a J70 back in 2013, early 14, something like that. Never dreamt that we would stand on that top step. We planned for it, but never dreamt that we could do it. So just epic is the only word I can give it. It's just amazing. Still grinning today. Actually, if I look up above the computer here now, the trophy's on the wall. I wish I could show it to you.
Fantastic. And Marshall, I know you've been involved in Olympic campaigns, but you've got a full-on proper job. You're not involved in the maritime industry whatsoever. Enormous sacrifices for you and your family. What did the win mean to you?
I think for me it was more satisfaction from having got a bunch of amateur sailors together at the end of the day and put some practice in, put a program together, and come away with what we wanted to win. And that's really satisfying, and it was a lot of fun doing it. So double fulfillment in that regard. And I think with the J70 and the Corinthian setup, is an achievable challenge, and just generally good sailers can band together and get a boat and do really well, and that's nice to have shown that that's possible.
Okay, wonderful. Well, guys, we've got a little bit of a video to play out with, but thank you very much for coming on the show. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. A last word from Ian.
Yeah, Louis, thank you very much for inviting us. Really enjoyed it, and just to be able to relive those memories from last year, it's a great opportunity. Thanks, mate.
Marshall.
Yeah, it's been fun actually thinking back over last year in this time when none of us can do any sailing, or very little, and just really would encourage everyone in the UK fleet to get ready for some sailing in the autumn, hopefully when it's all back on. I think it's a great program being lined up by the class, and looking forward to some good racing.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Ian, Marshall. Well, that's all we've got time for. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to get some more information about the J70 UK and Ireland class, you can visit www.j-70.co.uk. And this show is going to be replayed on Facebook, and it will also be on that website, and you can go back and watch it later or tell your friends to go and watch it. We're going to play you out with Soap Racing winning the World Championship in Torbay. Stay safe. See you soon.
Thanks, Louis.
Thanks, Louis.
This week's racing has been really tough. The competition is of the highest standard that there could possibly be. 20 nations represented from virtually every single continent. It truly is a world championship to remember by everybody. This is the final day's racing, and it is really very, very tight at the top.
So far this week it's been a bit of a fight. the toughest racing around at the moment.
This is a difficult venue, one of the toughest venues I've ever sailed in my life. We actually just have to push it and do the best that we can. We really can't worry about anybody else that's out there.
The goal for today is, of course, to make the podium, but we'll see if we can do that.
It's not a one-way championship, so it's given the whole fleet a lot to think about. We'll be very focused last 2 races and give it everything we've got.
Just going to do whatever we got to do to improve our position.
It is a true competition. It's too close to call. One mistake, they'll be spat out of the bag.
Hoping to roll out in the last 2, going out blazing.
It's been really difficult sailing, really shifty, really challenging.
Well, we've been trying to do this for 6 years now.
It's been a while.
Yeah, since we started
quite
in
a
La
few.
Rochelle. So, yeah, it feels amazing.